Welcome to the third part of my webinar running 50 days in Vietnam. My big, first long self-supported solo run in the mountains over 2000 kilometers in northeast Vietnam. In this third part, we're going to talk about the journey. The webinar series is available on HD quality on my YouTube channel, along with many other webinars, as well as my blog ultrajourneys.org. A 10-minute preview is posted on Insta TV and Facebook. So in this final part, we're going to talk about the actual journey and highlight a couple of important learnings and experiences of this first long journey in the mountains. Every day looked a little bit like this. So as you actually sleep outside or close to nature, in many cases out of 50 days, I think around 30 days, I would actually experience amazing hospitality, sleeping in at homes with people who invited me for food and stay. But generally, you need to kind of wake up pretty early, around 8 a.m. Here I can see it's a bit later than in the Himalayas, probably because we are drinking a lot of Vietnamese vodka the previous night. You start first with a small run, I would say, before you have your breakfast to clear your system. Breakfast will be much more tasty after an initial 5 to 10 kilometer run. Noon lunch, again, you get along the way somewhere in a village, a hamlet you pass. Then you have the afternoon run. And then typically in the evening, it was most interesting, before darkness actually, which fell at 6 p.m. in this place, also pretty close in terms of latitude to South India, so closer to the equator, so it gets dark pretty early. It's important actually to host for a place to spend the night before it gets dark, because once it gets dark, people become a little bit fearful to take any stranger or traveler into their home as you pass. So first the host hunt, then as I find a place to stay, it was all about blogging, shortlisting my pictures of the day and posting an update on the social media. And then of course route planning for the next day, check out the satellite maps, refine the route. My route of 2000 kilometers and 50 days was not fixed in advance like it is now in the Himalayas mostly. Those days I used to plan day by day. Night pee breaks is also funny here in the sense that some I didn't know, but being my first 2000 kilometer run, I had to go a lot to the bathroom in the night, had to get up through 2-3 times in the night, middle of the night, to go out for peeing. My system was reacting a little bit, I guess, to running, eating and drinking at the same time throughout the day. The daily running effort is in the mountains, it's not about kilometers anymore, it's more about how many valleys and how many ridges you run through. Every day I targeted around 40 kilometers. That 40k was still stuck in my head, being a marathon. These days it's more about the experiences actually, and running from morning till evening rather than looking at an exact mileage. Elevation gain on an average came to around 1500 meters, which is quite significant. This again with a 4 kilogram of luggage on your back, mostly your night shelter. Different types of terrain, the dirt tracks here, which became quite slushy when it rained, off-road or tar road. Downs and food planning is there, and then skipping of the highways was also an important part of the journey. So navigation was done with the phone, completely using soft copy of maps, offline maps. I kept my phone in flight mode to save battery, had a battery backup with me, a 10,000 mAh battery backup. Chargers, which the phone was charged whenever I took a break to eat my lunch, breakfast or dinner, to keep my phone fully charged as I was actually sleeping outside during the night. Used Google My Maps during those days. Still, I would not trust that if you really go to remote places like the Indian Himalayas. Caching, you cannot trust on that. You really need to have a solid offline copy like in OpenStreetMaps. Was looking at both the terrain maps for the topography and to know how much to climb during a day, as well as the satellite map to find the exact trails during my daily run. Every day during the night I used to cache the satellite maps when I had proper signal, so that during the day when I go in the interior mountains away from the towns, that at least I have my maps fully loaded. Hydration again has never been an issue since the beginning. I started running in the mountains. Mountains have fresh water where you can drink at the regular streams you will encounter, except maybe during peak summer, you're always gonna find running fresh water. Again, you pass through many hundreds and hundreds of settlements along the way where people will be happy to offer you water. Nutrition then, Vietnam is an amazing place when it's about food. When I see these photos, I'm gonna return immediately. You'll have soupy noodles there mixed with a lot of fresh vegetables. Everybody has a garden full of greens, which are again mixed with a lot of farm-raised animals, pork, sheep, chickens. Vietnamese eat everything. They're like cave people. They will not waste any bones or skin or any intestines from a pig. They really eat everything. So, but really fresh organic food. This again combined with green tea and vodka, self-brewed again in their backyard, makes a sumptuous meal with a lot of nutrition and a lot of calories to replenish the lost calories at the end of the day. Bompo, for example, pig noodles, soupy noodles with pork is available for just 60 rupees there. I guess around 2000 Indian Vietnamese dong. You burn a lot of calories while you run in the mountains as you run uphill. That burns much more than running flat. The pack of your weight is also there. And during December, Jan, when I run in Vietnam, it was pretty cold in the winter in the mountains. So that again burned extra energy to keeping the body warm. Weather has a major impact, right? You're exposed to the weather elements as you run or cycle through the mountains. You're not in a vehicle here. So you need to look at the weather forecast. Sometimes I had weeks of rain, pretty heavy rains, which do not make it easy. A lot of slush. Eventually, everything gets wet, and you end up sleeping in wet stuff at the end of the night. Temperatures you can see here in the night were pretty cool at 8 degrees, which is a big difference between day and night temperatures. Day temperatures overall were quite enjoyable in the month of December here at 17 to 22 degrees, so not very hot. Perfect days were actually where the sun was hidden, cloudy and drizzly climate, sunny days, peak summer at lower altitude was becoming quite hot and draining to run. Temperatures, you can see a nice diagram here at the bottom corner which shows the seasonal temperature differences. I think in the month of Jan or February, the last month of my run, where initially it was getting really cold there. I can see almost 3-4 degrees at night on the 5th of the month. And then as you go later in the month, the temperature starts climbing up, both the night temperature as well as the evening temperature. So you get a big variance also there between night and day, almost 25 degrees difference, making it quite freaking cold in the night and pretty hot during the day, putting additional stress on your body. Okay, so you have here the seasonal trends, you have the daily trends, and etc. So then night rest is extremely important. As you go running a marathon for 50 days non-stop every day, you need to have proper night rest. So wherever possible, again, as you get invited by somebody into a home, sometimes you have a cozy bed with warm blankets. And some other times you end up in a jungle somewhere in a broken shelter with just a tarpaulin sheet to keep yourself warm from the cold night. So it's always a challenge, as every day you never know where you're gonna end up at the end of the day. Even if you end up in a town, not necessarily there will be anybody willing to host you. So the night rest combined with good food is the two main factors that will allow you to recover overnight actually, and the next morning get you ready again to start running and the new marathon. As you run through remote places away from roads, modern infrastructures, bigger roads, district roads, as you go sometimes to hamlets which are connected only by trails several hours away from the main road, you come across amazing people, very innocent, very hospitable, amazing humanity there. How sometimes in the middle of the night you will barge in. People initially are a bit scared, of course, to see a stranger coming out of nowhere, also a foreigner, so they don't know your intentions. Remember also that the Vietnamese were in war with the Americans in the Vietnam War, but still people are extremely hospitable to foreigners, to Westerners. And again, out of 50 days, 30 to 35 days, I ended up with amazing food, amazing company, and nice, comfy bed to sleep in. Shelter, homestay again. It's the benefit here of is that you have you can socialize with the people. Of course, you don't speak the language, so it's a bit of challenge to have deep conversations. But it's nice to be in a comfortable, warm place in a dark winter night when it's cold and rainy outside. Sometimes you get a hot shower, good fresh dinner, nice comfortable night stay in some places. People give me breakfast before I leave, or they even pack up food for me to stay. Negative thing with homestay, I would say, is of course that sometimes it's very draining. After 30 days of comfortable homestays, invited into people homes, I was really getting a little bit tired of spending hours and hours drinking with people, talking with people, showing pictures till late in the night after running a whole day. So sometimes it's much nicer to just settle down by yourself in your sleeping mat and sleeping tarp somewhere on a mat in an empty, sheltered, deserted building somewhere, so you can sleep early and not have to socialize for 2 3 hours in the night. Language was interesting, so no English here, no common language. So finding food, finding directions, shelter, again, not much of a problem. Mostly you manage with sign language. One interesting experience was Google Translate, combined with the proper 4G network in many places, allowed me to almost hold real-time conversations in Vietnamese with the people. So you speak in, and you need a proper network connection because translation is done, voice translation is done by Google online through the to the AI on the Google servers. So as you have that network, you can talk in English, they can talk in Vietnamese, and the other party will see the translated, will actually hear the translated language in speaking language again. So that's quite amazing. If you don't have a network, then the only solution in Google Translate is to type in English or Vietnamese and get a type translation out. It does not support voice entry or voice output disconnected. Shelter camping, so that was some 15 to 20 days out of 50. So those were nice in the sense that you were really peaceful on your own. You could sleep immediately. You could do some easy processing of your photos, do some blogging at the end of the day. In the towns, it's less easy. Townspeople are not that hospitable. So you typically end up finding an empty building under construction or a public government building to sleep. In the countryside, there you have more options, but again, you need to be careful as closer to nature and to the forest. You don't have wild animals that much, but you will have a lot of snakes going around there. Looking at people eating snakes and drinking snake wine, that you really want to sleep in an elevated place, as you don't have a closed tent with you as a runner. You only have that tarpaulin sheet to break the wind and the wetness, which does not prevent a reptile coming close to you and giving you a nice bite in the night. Homestay versus camping, again, as I mentioned, host is all about socializing and drinking, less sleep. In return, you get a hot shower, a warm blanket, dinner and breakfast included. Camping is all about independence, peace of mind, but pretty cold nights. Sometimes I woke up at 1 o'clock in the night, as I could not take the night temperatures anymore. Like, especially when you're exposed to the wind. Something that I learned over the years. Rule number one is to cut the cold wind. That is the one that is gonna wake you up at 1, 2 a.m. in the night, and yeah, no other go there to get sleep for the rest of the night than to wait for the sun to rise. Medical, the main challenge of running a marathon every day is about overuse injuries. So you can only do this after proper training, obviously. Blisters could be a problem if you're not having the right shoes. Otherwise, there's not much of an issue. Downhill stress, whenever you run downhill, the impact on the legs, the knees, the ankles is much bigger. I could really feel that at times. So you need to control yourself and always listen to your body. IT band is a tricky one when you run in the mountains. IT band is the little muscle that pulls your leg forward. It's a small muscle that does a lot of work, especially when you run uphill. The IT bands can lead to injuries while running a strong uphill, so you need to slowly train this muscle. Okay, then bathing and washing, not a big deal. You run in the mountains, you have streams, you have waterfalls, lots of them to take a dip. Most of it is pretty clean water, not really polluted there, as it comes from the jungles and the pristine places, not polluted by big cities. You brush your teeth, you always carry your brush and your small tube of paste with you. You have dry fit clothing, so you can jump in with clothes, and within 5 minutes of running in a breezy environment, again, you'll quickly dry. Sanitation, Vietnam is very clean. Everyone has a bathroom. Nobody poops in the open like South India. This is something that I also see in North India, I mean in the Himalayas. So as a native South Indian myself, I prefer to actually go outside in the wild. Again, not a problem. You have a lot of streams and water to just jump behind the bush and get it over with. Dead ends then again, so as I mentioned earlier, the Google Maps in the second part sometimes are not very accurate, so sometimes you'll have a route on your phone, but on your on the field here there is a lake or there is a big wild stream that disconnects you from the other section of the road. So you need to improvise a little bit sometimes, wrap up your luggage in a tarpaulin sheet, swim across and continue along the road. So be a little careful, trusting blindly those routes marked on Google Maps. Better always to look at a satellite map to confirm if the route exists. Documenting, of course, is important. I think anyone going on an adventure like this, like a long self-supported journey that's quite unique, you must document this and share this with people to inspire other people to do the same. Capture your learnings, like in this presentation, making it easier and less daunting for other people to step into your footsteps. I do a lot of documenting during these days, less with blogging and text, but more about photography, visual blogging, geo-tagging my photos so I can retrace the journey with the latitude and the longitude in the photos. Do a lot of post-processing, take 500 pictures in a day, shortlist only 100 out of that, do a little bit of post-processing, and then basically a little bit of micro-blogging, you can say, on Facebook and Instagram to engage my followers. The same things you post then daily can also be copied onto your blog to be translated then in post-run documentation. Route logging, again, route logging up till now is one thing that I haven't done yet for two reasons. One is battery drain. Second is whenever I run or hike in the Himalayas over challenging terrain, my phone is mostly in my pockets of my shorts. After a while, I lose mobile signal somehow and my recording is messed up no matter which app I use. So I think you really need to have a special pocket here to keep it on top of your shoulder or your backpack, which is not that comfortable if you want to reference your phone often for navigation to record the trail with a clear satellite signal. Luckily, at this time, Google introduced this Google Maps timeline. So later on, looking at quite a few places where I had used my phone and the GPS became active, Google Maps had actually cached my location and cached it on the server, so I could reconstruct the entire route through Google Maps. Thermocoil mat and tarp. So these are my things for mainly sleeping in the cold nights outside. I carry a 6mm mat, very thin but very effective, very isolative towards the cold, wet underground. Sometimes you sleep on concrete in a portico, which is very cold at 5 degrees in the night, so you need to protect yourself from the base. Custom cut, you don't carry a long mat, you just cut it as per your body size. You sleep on top of your backpack as a pillow. The tarp then is mainly used only if it rains or if there is a cold wind. Otherwise, I simply sleep with my mat and my sleeping bag, which is 200 gram mat maximum and 500 gram sleeping bag. So 700 gram shelter, pretty minimalist, with another 500 gram of tarp in case of bad weather conditions. The tarp also functions, as you can see here, to wrap up and keep your backpack dry as you swim across certain lakes or dams or rivers you saw earlier, where I lose the trail or I get stuck in dense jungle. Consumables in the journey are obviously your shoes are gonna have a lot of wear and tear. After 75 days, it was time to come home. In the Himalayas, also 2 years after this, for 2 long summers, every 3 months my shoes get completely torn apart as you use them daily in pretty tough terrain. Phone storage runs low on a regular mobile phone, so you have to carry some USB sticks to keep backing up your photos. I use lenses. Lenses are extremely comfortable compared to glasses in the outdoors. When you sweat, when it's foggy, when it rains, very nice. Highly recommended. I can swim with it through streams. I can swim underwater. Only limitation factor is, of course, that you have to carry lens cleaning solution to keep your lenses in the night. So there again, carrying 150 ml, a small bottle, eventually runs out after 1.5 months. So that gives an external dependency, as nobody in Vietnam seemed to use lenses. Sun protection, protect white skin, sensitive to UV by carrying some sun cream, which I don't do anymore. Now I carry sleeves and a cap. And then more than the shoes, I would say the socks. Thin running socks are very comfortable for wet terrain, for sweaty, to keep your feet dry and breezy. But at the same time, thin running socks will quickly be worn, as you saw on the opening slide of this presentation. So every 1 month, actually, you have to throw it away and buy a new pair of socks. Last slide on the Vietnamese police. So let there be no doubt, Vietnam is a wonderful place to run. The people are amazing, but the leadership remains communist, a bit of a totalitarian one-party state. So as you go away from these commercial touristic places and explore the lesser known places, people will notice that you're an outsider. They will tip off. Some of the guys are like trusty party members, I guess, so they will tip off the local police, who will come and have a look. Mostly the people are extremely friendly, the local police. Nothing of harassment is there. They will just check your passport, whether your documents are okay. You show them some pictures to show them that you're running, that you're there to travel amongst nature, that you're not having any Western propaganda agenda. And very soon then, without speaking much of English, sometimes they will have to locate the English teacher in the next village to basically communicate with you. After verifying your purpose, they will actually leave you free to continue your journey. Sometimes they might insist that you sleep in a hotel, not with people privately. But that again has occurred very less, I would say, maybe 3 times out of 50 days. One slightly negative side effect is you run in remote places where you end up in the middle of nowhere in the night. You sleep in a nice bamboo shelter in a small remote farming village. It will be 8 o'clock in the night, right? When it's dark, you sleep then. And then 3-4 hours later at midnight, the police will knock on your door, because it really took 3-4 hours for the news that a Westerner is there to travel to the nearest village, to then for these police to come in the middle of nowhere, in the mountains, in the forest, along a trail in the dark, and to find the place where you are can take a little bit of time. So this is quite funny, that the knocking door sound on your bamboo hut in the middle of the night was happening once in a while. But again, after spending a little bit of time explaining why you're here, those guys are amazing, hospitable. So eventually you end up sharing some green tea or some vodka with these guys and your host before they say goodbye. And you crawl back under your warm blankets in the middle of the night, deep inside the dark mountains of Vietnam. Thanks for watching the series on ultrajourneys.org. Stay tuned for many more interesting webinars coming soon on my long and endurance journeys through nature. Thanks for watching.